Sometimes that does not necessarily take off right away. We're getting there though. We're getting there though. We have a moment here while we're connecting, folks. This is going. Sorry, guys. I'm reading Discord. Tack it, man. You nailed me with that one. You really nailed me with that one. Okay, so it looks like we're live on everything, so I'm going to go ahead and get this started. For those of you who may not know who I am, I mean, why would you be here? But I'm the Gamer Under Development, and today we're going to be doing a GFW roster meeting. GFW is our Good Fights Wrestling show that you may have seen here on Twitch. You may have seen it over on YouTube if you're watching over there. You may have seen it on Facebook. It's all over the place, at least when we do... At least when we do pay-per-views. Taryn, I'm muting you for one moment while I do the intro. yeah, that's it, Cheeseburger. It's like that. They're commenting in Discord, guys. I am the most pro-organized person, but I am very, very organized about GFW, which is why we're doing this. This is a meeting to discuss with the roster what we'll be doing in Season 3, and I've sort of invited you guys from the public into it for the reason of wanting you to kind of know what you're getting into if you are one of the people that did apply to join the program. Currently, folks, just so you know, and this is for everybody that's in voice with us too, is we have 11 people that signed up for next season. I can tell you right now offhand that 3 of them will be denied. I'm not going to tell you why, but it's pretty common sense if you look at the application. So that being said, that means that we will have at least 8 new people on the roster next season. So if you're one of those people and you're hanging out in chat, welcome in. I hope you're having a wonderful day. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in chat and we will address them. So we're going to open up today's meeting. I have an itinerary, guys. See, I am sort of organized. We're going to open up today's meeting with a very important speech. And this is for everybody on the roster. There's a lot of you in chat right now listening, which is great because this is mainly for you guys, but it's also for anybody who's watching in the chat that may be joining the show next season. Or if you're watching this video later on YouTube and trying to get a feel for whether or not you want to join GFW. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the difference between a wrestler being over and a wrestler being champion, because they're not the same thing. This is going to be especially important going into Season 3 because we're moving to a more long-term booking format. We have more planned out stories going on, and I can tell you guys right now, if your goal in Season 3 is primarily to capture gold, you may not make it. And there are reasons for that, which will sort of unfold, obviously, over the next season when you guys get to enjoy the story as it comes through. But that being said, there is a big difference between being successful in wrestling and having a title. We don't... somebody just hosted. Sensual Idiot, thank you for that host. Much appreciated for that quick signal boost there. So... This season, what we really want to do is we want to get you guys focused on getting your characters over as much as worrying about title belts, because this is something I've always said, and I want to reterm it, though. I'm not going to say title belts don't have value. It is not the title belt that makes the wrestler. It is the wrestler that makes the title belt. And if you need any further evidence than that, let me just put it this way. I don't want any Hogans. To put it blandly, Hulk Hogan is a manufactured wrestler. He is a man that had the belt put on him for almost a decade, if not longer, and that is how he got over. Which is really kind of silly, because if you take the belt away, Hogan's not that great. Now, on the other hand, you had guys like Rick Rude, guys like Scott Hall, guys like Jake Roberts, never ever held the big belt. They even interviewed Jake Roberts once and they said, well, how did you feel about not holding the big belt, not holding the heavyweight title? And Jake Roberts looks at the interviewer and he goes, I never needed it. And he didn't. All of those gentlemen were so good on their own that they were able to get their characters over without ever having to have the big belt. The big belt didn't mean anything. Mr. Perfect is another great example. There are tons of wrestlers throughout history that never got the big belt, and it didn't matter because they were still insanely over with the crowd. And that's what we want for our wrestlers on the GFW roster. Some of you have already spoken with me to that degree. Mark and I had a nice chat about that, and we've got some good plans for him next season. And I'm really, really excited for where we can take that. So that is my opening speech, guys. And if you want, you can unmute now because we're going to move on to the next part of the itinerary. I hope that came through clear. Oh, I do have one more caveat for you guys, though. If you are a champion in GFW, there is a very important meaning to that, a very important value to that. Being a champion in GFW, it's not a privilege, it's not a pat on the back, it is a responsibility. If you were here for Season 2, you'll know that our champion in Season 2 was Xavier Shamrock. Xavier Shamrock was actually a character that I ran Want to point this out. He became champ because the roster said he was the most over heel and it made sense for him to be champ. I didn't want him to be champ. But the reality is when Xavier Shamrock became champ and the RP got kind of quiet and there wasn't a whole lot going on, then what you'll notice is that Xavier Shamrock was the one stirring up trouble, causing the RP to kick up. The bottom line is, if you're a champion in GFW, you have a bit of a responsibility. You are expected to be a locker room leader. Okay, hold on, guys. Somebody's echoing me.
I already sorted it out.
Oh, okay. Cool. So basically, if you're a GFW champion, then you're a locker room leader. You're expected to help create content for the rest of the roster by RPing and giving people something to interact with and something to do. It is not as much a privilege as it is a responsibility, and that is what I'm expecting of our champions this season. But I'm also fully confident that our champions are capable of that, knowing what I know going forward. And those of you who I've spoken to already about this, you already know who you are, and you know that I have the utmost faith in you. I mean, everybody knows that Aesher's one of them. I've got great faith in Aesher and his ability to help drive the RP. And the other folks that I've spoken with, you know who you are, and I have absolute confidence in your ability to drive the RP as well. That being said, if you are someone that does aspire to be a champion, driving the RP is a good way to show you're ready. Just saying that. Okay, so that is the whole over versus gold speech. Done, finished. Let's move on to the Young Lions program. So for the Young Lions program, we've got, like I said, 8 different people signed up. I've got one video up already that shows you guys how we built the technician out and what logic we built for them. We're also going to be building a couple more templates for that. The current planned templates are an orthodox wrestler with logic, a striker with wrestler, or a striker. English good. English is hard, guys.
Striker.
Yes, a striker moveset with logic, a high flyer moveset with logic, a dirty moveset with logic, and a power moveset with logic. And those are the templates that new people that don't have their own edits are going to be able to select from. Once you pick that template, we will go through and customize the appearance of the wrestler just a little bit to make it unique to you. I'd like to keep the Young Lions Black Trunks thing because I actually think that's a really, really cool aesthetic. And I think it's cool for setting those wrestlers apart so people know that they're looking at future talent that will be coming up. Now, the goal of the Young Lions program is to have you get started with the company, and then if you actually stick around, you actually RP, you actually become a member of the community and the roster, that is when we will move you up from the Young Lions program into the actual main roster, and we will put in the work to go ahead and make you a more fleshed out, complete character. You'll start being involved in more of the main event stories and things like that. That's the goal, is to basically create an opportunity for people to show that they want to be involved in the company, they want to move up. So that's where we're going with Young Lions. If anybody has any questions or anything. Oh, okay. I was just checking because I thought we had a question. What do you mean if we become a champion? Bowen, probably. Thank you for that host, Bowen. Appreciate that, brother. Red Eye Gaming, what do you mean if we become a champion? I mean that if you are a member of the GFW roster and through the planning of the story and the booking, you end up holding one of our titles, then your job as a champion is to kind of stir up trouble in the RP. It's to keep people engaged in the RP by creating content. So a great example of how I did that last season with Xavier Shamrock, chat went silent. So you know what we did? Xavier Shamrock and his group Howl decided it would be really fun to take sledgehammers and destroy the dojo. Piece by piece, tear it apart, which literally got every single member of the roster involved in a dojo-wide brawl.
Yeah, I think I remember that. The first swing was at Marcus. Didn't hit, but ended up causing problems with Kendo.
Well, and Taryn got involved there when Krim went after her. Like, it became such a brawl, folks, that we ended it with the police being called out and Taryn going to jail. Do you mean you create us or something? Red Eye, if you sign up and you don't have an edit, we will create an edit for you. That's what we were talking about with the Young Lions program. You will then be able to customize the appearance of that edit a little bit so it looks more like the character you envision, and then you will basically have the opportunity to be a part of the roster and roleplay with everyone else to help develop your character. If you show that you're active and you're doing that, if you put in time, then I will in turn put in time taking your edit from a young lion to a fully fledged member of the roster, and from there you'll be involved in stories and things like that. That's what I'm saying. Okay. So if anybody has any questions, now is the time. Red Eye, I am watching in case that wasn't clear enough or anything. Just let me know.
If I could also offer a turning point, if someone's a face, you as a champion can also do that by offering aid and training to a young lion or something. There's always something that someone can do. It's not just the heel's job to do things.
No, you're absolutely right. If you're a face, I mean, if you're a wrestling fan, which you probably are if you're here and you're watching this, or you want to join GFW, then you know that faces have multiple ways that they can progress stories, they can get things over. You can come out and do an open title challenge, you can take offense at something that a dirty heel has done and start trouble with them so that you can begin a story with them. There's lots of different ways that you can begin a thing. You could come out and say, hey, I want to have a tournament for who's going to get a shot at my belt. Tons of different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. Tackett pointing out in chat to everyone that once you've gotten roles on the Discord to access the RP channel, you can go RP before your character's even on the show. You can start building up sort of the background for that character so everybody knows who you are, which is a really good idea, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't see any more questions, so we're going to move on to the next part of the itinerary, which is the PPV and season explanation. Did I miss someone?
Do you have a question?
I've got one thing. Do you want to touch on possibly anybody that has not been there for any time you've addressed it? The mentoring program.
Oh, that's a good point. The mentoring opportunities. There you go. See, that's what I expected, Red Eye. So Leon brings up a good point. I didn't discuss the mentoring part of Young Lions. So if you are one of the Young Lions joining the season and say you're not comfortable with RP, we will be assigning you a mentor who is comfortable with RP, and you don't have to use them. It's not like you have to check your RPs by them first before you post them. It's not a limitation. It is a resource for you. So if you have an RP and you're not sure if it's good, or you're not sure if you need to tune it a little bit, then you can send it to that person and they will look over it with you and they'll say, oh, this is really good and maybe this could be better. What about changing it like this? Things like that. So there will be assistance. What if you were here for you and not for the GFW? Hey, what's up, Grant? How you doing today, brother? Then I love you even more because you're even more awesome. Holy, good seeing you, Grant. That just put a big smile on my face. So yeah, so Taryn is saying that she would love to mentor someone, and Tackett is saying that as well. I will say there are a lot of people on the roster that were very impressive last season, and it'll be kind of interesting because I'm not sure how we'll actually assign people to their mentors, but there are certain people on the roster that I think would be excellent at mentoring because of how well they performed in RP last season. And what I'll probably try to do, guys, is I'll try to pair people that are the newest to wrestling RP with the people that did the best last season so that they have the most helpful resource. Because people that are kind of there already, they just need somebody to help them the rest of the way. And people who have no idea, like they've never done this before, could probably use the assistance of somebody that is really good, So that's... and now that's going to create problems because people are going to be like, am I really good? Everybody's really good. Moving forward. So we will have a mentorship situation for the Young Lions. So I'm going to move on now to the PPV season and the explanation for that. So up until now, there's been some real timing issues with GFW, and this is entirely my fault. Total noob question. What's wrestling RP? Sensual Idiot, wrestling RP is... If you've ever watched professional wrestling, Sensual Idiot, when they cut to like a backstage segment and maybe The Rock is sitting back there and he's talking crap about somebody, or he's talking about how he didn't lose his last match because the other guy cheated and there was sun in his eye and nothing was fair and it was not his fault that he lost the match. And it's sort of, hey, my sister's in chat, folks. Hi Nell, how you doing? I better say hi to her. She will kick the crap out of me in real life, y'all. She will. I wrestled with her when I was a kid. Hi, Nelly. How you doing today? So basically, Sensual Idiot, what wrestling RP is in this regard is it's getting your character over. So if your character is somebody who, for example, Tackett, I'm going to use you as an example because your character is great, and I think there's lots of easy ways to build it. So Tackett's character is somebody who doesn't like... he's a straight edge guy who doesn't like alcohol, and he's a bad guy. So he's supposed to make people not appreciate that he doesn't like alcohol and stuff. He's supposed to make people think he's a jerk because of it. So what Tackett might do is he might like do a segment where he sees somebody having a beer and walks in and basically talks down to them and treats them like crap. And the reason why is because that gets Tackett over. It tells everybody, well, he's a bad guy and he doesn't like alcohol because he's straight edge. So basically, Wrestling RP is giving context to your character. What's up, Hellbound? How you doing, man? Or woman, whichever it is.
Wrestling RP can also be like where you've got those segments where like two wrestlers that are in a rivalry, you know, stare eye to eye backstage where they pass each other in a corridor, because we also do that, because it's not just like doing an RP where you get yourself over. You can work with other people in RP to get both of you over, or several people over at once.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, and there's a lot of interesting things you can do with it. It's essentially just building your own wrestling show segments without any limitations, which is what makes it so cool. It's like a bad gimmick for a character. I would disagree with that, Red Eye, because that's kind of similar to CM Punk's gimmick with a little bit different twist, because we try to make sure that we're not like, infringing on anybody's exact gimmick or anything like that.
I mean, it's a hardliner, isn't it? We don't even use straight edge. We use hardliner.
We use hardliner instead of straight edge. So another great example, like we have a ton of working stories right now. We have Mark Scarrett, who was a former military officer who is sort of one of the good guys of GFW. We have Phoenix, who's basically just a psychopath, and in order to get in Mark Scarrett's head, he beat down Mark Scarrett's former teammate with a steel chain. So it's things like that. It's just things that help develop stories that result in matches on the show. That's how you give those matches weight, is by putting a story behind it. So well played, Tackett, well played. So that's basically what Wrestling RP is for. And there are different gimmicks, and some of them are a little bit more risque. I would say that there is the potential for a hardliner gimmick to be risque, depending on how you look at it. But that's sort of the thing, is that in general, heel gimmicks are going to be a bit more risque. There is a limit to that. There is a place that we will not go past. But in some cases, the whole point of a heel is to just be a jerk, right? So X is a great example of that. We have characters on the roster that are shorter. Yeah, so Psychopath is definitely something you can play up. Anyways, these are all just different characters, and that's what we do, is we try to build these interesting characters so that we can build interesting stories around them. So getting back to the second point of the meeting, which is the season. For the past 2 seasons of GFW, if you guys have been here, you know how it's been. The first season, things were pretty consistent. We were actually doing 2 shows a week at that point, and we were doing a pay-per-view maybe once every 3 months. But there was a week between the final build-up show to a pay-per-view and the pay-per-view, and that was kind of a bad thing. Season 2, I really got invested in some of the other stuff going on the YouTube channel, so it got even less consistent. We weren't even necessarily getting out 1 show a week. It was maybe 1 show every 2 weeks, and in bad cases, 1 show every 3 weeks. Still with that week build-up time to the pay-per-view. That is problematic. It's not fair to you guys. It's not respecting of you guys' investment into the show, in my opinion, and we don't want to do that anymore. So next season, there are going to be some changes. For one thing, GFW is going to have a dedicated slot on the weekly show. So it will have a weekly slot on the channel, and it will fall that day every week, except for pay-per-views, which will obviously be on the weekend. With that, we're going to be moving to a new season. Instead of the season being a legitimate year like it has been so far, it is going to be a 6-month season. That'll be 6 pay-per-views. And at the end of those 6 pay-per-views, the season will end. We'll enter an off-season. We'll do some recruiting. We'll gear up for the next season. We'll get going. And this is actually really nice if you think about it in comparison to a real year, because the time in-game actually runs at double time, which means that if the game tells you a match was 30 minutes, it was actually 15 minutes real time. So if we tell you that it's 6 months, it's actually a year, because the game doubles it. So we're kind of keeping in stutter step with that, so to speak. I do have the names for the pay-per-views if you guys want to know those. I'm sure that that's something exciting. A lot of these are ones that we've done before, but there are a couple new ones that will be debuting next season. So here they are kind of this is a not locked in order, but it's a pretty good idea of what the order will be. The first pay-per-view of the year of the season will be Backdraft. That's what we did for this season. That's something I'd like to keep for all future seasons. Backdraft is our return. Catalyst will be the second pay-per-view potentially. Catalyst is actually the name of the first ever GFW pay-per-view that we've ever done. So we're bringing that back because we kind of didn't use that last season. Recognition will be the next pay-per-view. Divergence will be the pay-per-view after that. Ascension will follow that. And then the final pay-per-view of our season, every season locked in, will be the Blackout. And one of the things we're going to be doing to make this more sustainable is during this off season, I will be building all of the arenas and branding for all of these pay-per-views. And they will be ready to go. So we won't need a week's time in between the last show of the build-up and the actual pay-per-view. We'll just be able to go straight from that last show into the pay-per-view, and everybody will have the opportunity to enjoy it just like that, which is what we want. So yeah, I'm glad that people are receiving the names of the pay-per-views well. Sorry, whatever happens. Yeah, we have some people that fall into that range, Red Eye. And that's the thing, is that's a great starting point for a gimmick. The trick is how you expand past that, right? So we've got a character named Reeve that's like that. He's a hardcore wrestler, a little bit crazy. And he expands past that in being sort of an introverted, focused character who's like very much at battle with his own inner demons. We have another character who is more of a manipulator that's also a psychopath in Phoenix. And it's really just a matter of how you expand your character past that basic template, right? And that's the fun thing about these RP feds. If you guys have never been involved in one, the best part about them is watching your character grow. You'll start out with a very sort of generic template. This is what I want to do. And then because of the stories that you have with other people, your character will grow in unique and interesting ways that you didn't see them growing. I think Mark's character is about to do that in the next season, guys. I'm super excited for you to see the new Mark. I really am. I think that Asher, Taryn, we're going to see a lot of people grow in a way that we haven't seen before on camera in this next season, and I'm super excited for that.
Talking of the season, Tackett has asked the question of how long are we planning on the off-season to be?
The off-season is going to be as long as it needs to be to get things done, because in the past seasons, what's happened is we've rushed the off-season. We've not been adequately prepared, and the show hasn't really progressed much because of that. Now, that being said, there are a few things I'm not going to be doing to make it shorter. We're not going to be reinventing the branding for Mayhem. Mayhem has great branding already. Where we can, we're going to be reusing assets that we've already created to try to keep things sort of on track and reduce the amount of time we spend in the off-season. I'm hoping that it won't be any more than a month, but at worst, I would say maybe 2 months. And that's just because there's a lot of roster shifting being done. Like, we have a lot of people that are going to be retired from the roster, and we have a lot of new people that are going to be coming in. And then after that, we have to be able to do things like check the balance of the roster. Do we have as many faces as heels? What can we do to shift that if we need to? That's going to be something that's very interesting this season, because that shifts quite a bit. Last season, we had more faces than heels. I think this coming season, we're going to have more heels than faces, especially when you look at the strength of RP for those two sides. I think we're going to have a lot of really strong heel RP, and we might be a little more limited on faces, which means that some of the characters are going to have to do some flex jobs, which means I've got to figure out how to turn a manipulative psychopath into a good guy. That'll be fun. This is what I mean by interesting growth. So if anybody else has any questions, let me stop here for a moment, so that I can answer them. Cheeseburger, you said miss the crowd. Do you mean that you missed having the crowd in the arenas, or are you talking about something else? Because that's actually something that's an interesting discussion point in GFW. Okay, so the crowd in GFW has been removed to produce empty arenas, which is, a reflection of real life. We try to keep GFW as reflective of real life as we possibly can. And part of that is, quarantine is a thing right now. We're in a global pandemic, and not respecting that, I feel like, would have been... I mean, I understand people that don't. It was a little bit more work to respect that. But I also feel that respecting that was the right thing to do. And I think it sends the right message about myself and what I believe in support, and GFW in particular. We would rather you guys be safe, you be at home, you take care of yourselves, and you not expose yourselves to an unnecessary risk. So take care of yourself during the pandemic. And that's basically why we did it. That being said, we are reaching a point where things are reopening. Different areas are beginning to put on shows again. I actually just found out that Australia is lifting bans and they're going to be doing independent shows there again. So it's tough because that's going to be sort of a point of contention, because there's a couple different ways that this goes down in real life, right? Maybe everything reopens and everything ends up being fine because we've controlled the spread. I honestly kind of doubt that. I think it's more likely that what may happen is people may rush to reopen and we may have a further outbreak and have to go back into quarantine. And GFW will do its best to... Can you put people in the stands with masks and BLM shirts? Actually, I could potentially do that. Maybe that's something we'll do this offseason. That's actually not a bad idea. That being said, because I do right now, if you don't like this and it makes you mad and you want to leave, then you can do that. I support Black Lives Matter 100%. I have sort of avoid commenting on it too much because it is a hotbed, and it's a tough spot, right? Like, because I fully support it, but at the same time, there are a lot of people on both sides, and while I may not agree with either side, I try to respect everybody's positions and not really put myself in a position to argue with people about stuff like that. Because the reality is, if you don't understand why Black Lives Matter is a thing, then you're probably not gonna understand. It's not like the information's not out there. It's not like it's something that you can't sort of do your own research and figure out. If that's not something you believe in, then that is a personal belief that probably isn't a good faith belief, in my opinion. That's about what I want to say about that. So I'm gonna move on to our next point here. So we will see crowds potentially return to the arenas. That's something that I actually would like to see. Okay, so
I'm going to have one thing about the pay-per-views.
yes.
Is there one that's going to be like the GFW Christmas show? Because I'm a super Yule nut, so I'm kind of hoping we could squeeze like a little bit of a Christmas theme in there.
I'm gonna be honest and say probably not. Considering we're not mapping to an actual year, trying to map to holidays is probably not going to work very well.
Okay, fine.
Also, this isn't a stab at anybody that does those shows, but frankly, I find it kind of, I don't want to say cheesy, but usually it's wasteful. It's usually wasteful.
Gimmicky.
Yeah, it's usually gimmicky and wasteful. You end up, instead of having meaningful stories that end in a meaningful conclusion, you end up with a lot of stories that are just like, this is a Santa Claus on a pole match, and like that's not meaningful. What's your beef with Halloween Havoc, bro? I don't have a beef with Halloween Havoc, and I get that theme shows can be fun, but our GFW show is special for one particular reason, in my opinion, and that is because we have some of the most compelling stories that are paid off. They go for the duration you would expect them to go for. They have value, and they have meaning, and they have depth, and I think that's kind of important, and that's something that's sorely lacking in professional wrestling today. If you guys watch WWE, you know that maintaining a storyline for a long period of time and paying it off is not exactly something that happens there. So the fact that we're able to do that here is something I'm extremely proud of. And I want to be able to keep doing things like that.
Not to mention, I don't think we're ever going to do something like Bash at the Beach where you're going to see Gooden in a Hawaiian shirt.
I mean, it's not impossible. It's not impossible, but we'll get there. We'll get there, right? So now we've done the PPV season explanation. We're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming website. For those of you who may have been following along at home, we haven't really had an official website for GFW. We haven't had any sort of like official resource for that. Everything's kind of lived on the Discord, including the roleplay, which works, but also doesn't work. Because sometimes that makes it easy to follow, and sometimes it makes it really hard to keep stories that should be together. So I actually went out and this is something I don't think I told most of the roster yet, but I actually went out and purchased a domain. I looked at free websites. There weren't any free sites that were going to do what we wanted to do. So I just went out and dumped the money, and I bought us a web domain. GamerUnderDevelopment.com now belongs to us. There will be a GFW page on there. That GFW page will have a living visual roster where you'll see the edits, you'll see their information. All of that stuff is going to be part of that. That's why I said that maybe the offseason will run 2 months, because it may take at least a month just to get that part running. That being said, it is in progress. I am working on it. And as that becomes more and more developed, I am going to open that up to you guys. The roster, as well as the folks who are watching on YouTube and are part of the community, will have first dibs at beta testing the site as different features on it become live. So that's something to look forward to if you're into that kind of thing. There will also be opportunities to give feedback and sort of change some of the UI and things like that as we go forward. There is something in discussion, so I want to check that real quick. Oh, puts hand up. What's up, Mark?
Actually, I'm sorry, I did that a while ago, and I actually lost my initial thought. Although I did want to ask if I could, or I'm not. The thing is, I'm not sure if I should ask this out loud or not, although it's kind of an important question. So how would you like me to handle it?
If you're worried about asking it out loud, I would say maybe message it to me privately and I'll look at it. I'm not sure what it would be like. Obviously, we're live on stream, so if it's something that would potentially violate terms of service, then yeah, message it privately. If not, then
no.
Then
it's more about how you and I have worked on my team together because of my physical limitations. With the influx of new talent and whatnot, should we maybe relook at that so that you're not the only one helping me, maybe? Because I never want to be a burden to you, but
okay, so let me just head this off real quick. We'll go into it. For those of you watching at home, Mark suffers from a disability that makes it hard for him to type. So it's hard for him to write his RPs, so he tends to record them in voice, and what I do is he'll send them to me and I'll listen to them, and he and I will work together to convert them from voice to text and then post them in RP. And yes, going forward next season, what we would like to do is anybody that is working with Mark in RP, it would be helpful if they could, take those voice files and work together with him to convert those into text files, or rather to text and post them. And that's something we've already kind of discussed a couple times, Mark, and that's what I'm hoping for going forward. And I don't think that anybody on the roster has been like, I don't want to do that. But I also think that based on the changes to the structure going forward, that will be a lot easier as well. Frankly, because we'll have more organized RP channels that people can go into. So instead of it just being one long stream of text like Discord is, we will actually have forum posts for different feuds and things, and that will help people to keep that stuff more organized and basically simplify the process. So I don't think that's go ahead, Goth.
I was going to say that's going to be easier on me because obviously a lot of people might not notice, but I am severely visually impaired. I only have 10% vision in my right eye, so reading a lot of text in one brick like a wall of text is not exactly good for me because it strains my eyesight. So definitely transferring to the forums is definitely going to help somebody with my disability. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of good things that'll come with the website. I'm actually looking forward to the roster management side of it myself, because we have over 40 people on the roster right now, with potentially another 8 coming in already. So that's a lot of people to manage, and it'll help a lot to have a living database that we can use to do so. But we'll get to that more when the website starts to flesh out a little bit. Okay, so that's the website discussion. Now we're moving on to the management discussion, things and opportunities that people can assist with. As we go forward, I'm going to be keeping sort of an open mind for things that people can help with. And I think the website is actually going to add to this, because as I said, with the website, we're going to have a living roster. So if people want to help with entering people into that at some point, that might actually be useful, because what I'd like to do is create like a web form that we can go to where you can enter all of the edits information and it'll just shove them into a database, and then we can pull down the entire roster from there. So when we hit that point, what I might do is I might take some screenshots of the edit screen, because that's all we really need for each of the edits, and put them in like a Google Drive somewhere, and then ask people if they want to help enter people into that system, just so that that's something that can get done. But as always, we're going to be looking for ways that people can help out, and we've got some people that I think are interested in that. So far, the track record with people who say they want to help out and then disappear isn't very good. So I don't want to basically give anything that's mission critical to people to do, because chances are they won't necessarily go through with doing them. But there will be opportunities to help out to some degree, and that's something that I'll be looking to make available to people that are interested in that. So that's really all there is to the management thing. I want to have a wrestler. That would be cool. There is an application. I should actually have already had that ready for you guys. Let me go ahead and pull that up. I'll link the application in chat for anybody that's interested in applying. And some of the I'm not going to get into some of the responses to this application, but be reasonable. Let me just put it that way. Be reasonable if you want to be on the roster. Consider being reasonable. That's all I'm going to say. And when it says, where can I contact you, actually give me something that allows me to contact you, because Discord without any contact info is not a good answer. So the last point of the itinerary tonight or today that we need to talk about is the new arenas that we'll have for next season. So right now, the arena lineup that we have is we have the Royal Albert Hall Arena, which we built for Backdraft last season. We have the Hammerstein Ballroom, which is the arena that we pretty much always hold the Blackout in, because that is the original pay-per-view arena that was used by ECW, in a way that we kind of pay tribute to them, since we're based out of Philadelphia in KFOB. We have the Mayhem Arena, which isn't necessary. It's technically the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We have the Pulse Arena, which has been retired at this point because Pulse as a show has been retired, but we do still have that and could potentially use it for something else. We have the Ascension Arena, which is the new Globe Arena that we built. Yeah. Tears for Pulse, guys. Tears for Pulse. That being said, it was just too much to run two shows, man. It really was. Okay, so the new arenas, these are the 3 new arenas that we're going to be building, and there is something to be said here for folks that want to get involved in maybe scouting locations or particularly popular arenas in these 2 areas that I'm going to be discussing next. We're going to be adding a Mexico City arena for one of our pay-per-views. And we'll be using the in-game Mexico City arena that has like the dancing girls, but we'll probably pull those out and replace them with something else, which is thankfully an option due to the mod pack. So if you guys have any in particular Mexico City arenas that are famous that you want to try to have us replicate for the shows, let me know, because I honestly don't watch that many Mexican shows, and I don't know what those arenas are or what ones are particularly popular. Like, I can tell you about Madison Square Garden, but I have no idea where AAA holds their biggest shows and what arenas we should be trying to emulate there. The other arena that we'll be adding is a Vancouver, British Columbia arena. So once again, if you're Canadian, if you happen to have an idea of what arenas are used for large events in that area, do let me know, because we can pull some resources from that and try to mirror that arena and actually create that arena so that we can do that in a real venue. And the final arena that we're going to be adding in, and this one I'm very excited about, will be the Globe Theater Arena in LA. I'm excited to bring this in because we have access to a PWG arena that was created by, I want to say it's Amsterdam, but I might be wrong. I'm probably wrong about that. So we'll be having the Globe Theater Arena that PWG has used for so many of their notorious matches and spots and things like that. And that will basically be one of our new arenas that we'll run. I'm not sure which pay-per-views are going to which arenas yet. We haven't figured all that out. But those are the 3 new arenas we're going to be adding. or adding in. And the whole point for this meeting, for the roster, is for you guys to kind of know what we're doing going forward, and also for you to understand why the offseason is going to take some time, because this is all the stuff we're doing. And I mean, this isn't even all the stuff we're doing, because really, we also still have to go through the roster, decide who's getting cut, things like that. There's a bunch of backstage sort of office work that still needs to be done, in addition to all of this stuff that is more forward-facing.
And apparently, Tackett wants an arena in Oklahoma.
Send me an arena in Oklahoma that Big Show's run.
I think he's possibly joking. I don't know.
I mean, I'm not opposed to it. We could definitely replace one of our arenas with that, but I would, once again, it's send me a venue that Big Show's run there.
Right. Tennessee.
Okay, everybody wants hometown arenas now. We get it.
I mean, I could say one that's kind of infamous, but we already have the Royal Albert Hall, so I don't know whether I should mention it or not.
We're not doing, if we already have a custom arena for a particular region, we're not going to do another one. I will say that much. Just because that's just additional work for very, very little benefit.
Yeah, no,
absolutely, Red Eye Gaming. Absolutely. So that's really all I have for you guys. This is the part of the meeting where we open it up to the roster, and if you guys have any questions, speak now or forever hold your peace. Not really. I want to make sure that I am not server muting anyone. Okay, cool. So yeah, questions in chat. If you have any, let me know now. Questions in Discord. If you have any, let me know now. Otherwise, yeah, I think that's going to be it for this. Following this meeting, guys, we're going to be doing something we haven't done before. So if you're in chat and you're a wrestling fan, maybe stick around. Goth and I do a podcast called Hitting the Mats with Goth and Good, where we talk about wrestling and just general subject matter related to it. And we had a little bit of an issue with the recording of that podcast this week, so we're going to be doing it live right here, right after this. I am going to cut stream off for a short time to set that up. But once we do that, it'll be right back up, and we will be doing Hitting the Mats with Goth and Good live. You guys can interact with us in the chat while we're doing the podcast. What is an RP? An RP is a role play. It's a story that you write about your wrestler and what they're doing. If you want a good example, let's see. Let's go pinch a cool RP real quick. Let's see. Oh man, there's some really good stuff in here. It's not necessarily in a highly readable format without a little bit of time. Let me find one that's like not too bad. That one's pretty short. That'll work. Give me 1 second, folks, to get this on screen in a readable fashion without like doing something crazy. If you pick us as wrestlers, do we need to be modded? Just Jeff, you don't need to be modded because you'll be on my save as a wrestler. So if you have a wrestler you already made and you're going to be joining GFW, you'll send me your edit either via the Steam Workshop or as an edit export file, and I will go ahead and add you to my save of the game, so you don't need to be modded. Yeah, basically making your character's gimmick is a good way to describe it, but here is a little bit of an example. Give me 1 second and I'll pull that up on screen for you guys. I just need to capture a window here. Window capture, Discord. Okay, sure. That's fine. Let me just pinch that off to right about... Hold on, guys. Right about here. And right about here. Okay. So we're about to transition over, and I will show you guys one sort of short RP that was done. This was right before Ascension. I'm not sure where to put it. I'll put it right up here. And it's basically just a story that you're writing. So this is the feud between Mark Scarrett and Phoenix. Mark and Phoenix were backstage brawling. Mark had just attacked Phoenix and smashed it. Well, they had just brawled, and Mark had gotten the upper hand and smashed Phoenix's forehead into a broken soda pop machine, which had cut him open. Okay, 1 second, folks. Okay, there we go. So essentially, this is the conclusion of that. Mark and Phoenix are fighting backstage. Mark gets the upper hand. He knocks Phoenix down. He lifts his sledgehammer well over his head, and Phoenix is just there prone, vulnerable, and Mark, who's the good guy, is struck with this realization that he's about to do a horrendous thing because he's been pushed that far by Phoenix. So that's the kind of thing we do with RP, is we build up these stories, and it gives the commentary team something to do when we're having matches on the show, where we can talk about what happened backstage and give you guys an idea of why these two guys in the ring, or these two competitors in the ring, want to tear each other apart. Well, that's the beauty of this, Red Eye, is that before this, Mark wasn't super hardcore. Mark was like this super chipper, nice guy that would like help you out and like walk old ladies across the street, and just was just a super nice chipper guy. And because of the feud between these two guys, he was pushed to this place where he got really, really brutal and extreme. And that's what I mean by it's really cool to see how you can evolve a character over time. Okay, so that's been up on screen long enough. I'm going to pull it down. So yeah, that's essentially what you do with RP, is you build out your character, you make them more interesting so that everybody can kind of get an idea of who they are and why they should be interested in their matches. And I think I already answered you, but just Jeff, yeah, you don't need to be modded. We'll get your edit if you have one. If you don't have an edit, guys, we'll give you one of our Young Lion templates, and then you can work yourself into the stories as we go. That being said, last chance, folks. If anybody else has any comments, feedback, questions, whatever, do let me know right now, because if not, I'm going to take the stream down for just a minute, and then we are going to come back live, and it is going to be me and Goth, and we're going to be doing Hitting the Mats with Goth and Good. And if you're wondering what our topic is for today we will be discussing our most favorite and least favorite spots in professional wrestling, including what exactly a spot is, since that is something that is not exactly written in stone. So I guess I'll give everybody a moment to come up with questions, and then we'll go ahead and cut it down here. GFW folks that are in the meeting right now, if you have questions, feel free to leave them in chat. Feel free to speak up. Now is your time to ask.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm not seeing a whole lot. Tackett's typing something, so I'll wait for that. But yeah, I mean, we tried to cover everything with this meeting. Like I said, no questions, but read what I said. Aw, okay. That's appreciated, Tackett. It's always nice to hear that people are loving their time in GFW. Oh, we got some new messages. If you create a wrestler, do you decide when he must retire? If you're active, yes. If you create a wrestler, Red Eye, and you are active and you are involved in the story, they can go for as long as they need to go. The only time that we're retiring people off the roster is when their edits are abandoned. Asher, yeah, there are templates for female Young Lions as well. They'll basically be the same as far as moveset and logic go, but we'll have a separate appearance for them. I hadn't actually thought about that. That's a very good point. That was an oversight on my part. But that's because I wasn't even thinking of the Young Lion templates as appearances as much as moveset and logic templates. Could Tackett possibly get a manager? Yeah, we could do something with that. For sure. And actually, that brings up a good point that I want to make right now. If you're a current member of the roster, I am going to be setting aside scheduled times to meet with you to talk about your character and any changes going into the next season, because there's going to be a lot of people that do need changes, and we know that. And it's just a matter of making a list, and that's another thing that's just going to take some time. But yeah, back to what I was saying, Red Eye. If you are completely inactive and you abandon your wrestler, then we may cut you. That's just reality. And the main reason for that is because I don't want to dedicate story time and main event spots to people that don't contribute when we have a roster full of people that do contribute. It just doesn't seem fair. Okay, so I am not seeing any more questions. I think we're going to call this here, and then I am going to get things set up. And in just a moment, we will be... Yeah, I know, Tackett, I know. But I mean, the upside to being in a feud with an inactive wrestler is that you win. Because I'm not going to put an inactive over you, so... there's some truth to that. Like, and I try not to do that, guys. And even if you win, the idea is not for you to just job them out entirely, because I respect everybody on the show. We don't want to job people out. Okay. So I'm not seeing any more questions, guys. I think we're going to call this right here, and Goth and I will be back in just a moment with Hitting the Mats with Goth and Good. So thank you guys for watching. We'll be with you in just 1 second. So if you want to stick around for that, stay in channel. It might be a few minutes because I do got to switch over some things to set that up, but it won't be too long. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in a moment if you stick around.